In today's episode, we are talking about one of the most important things for any couple, but especially for step couples, and that is how we communicate, especially about the hard stuff. I'm Cameron. I spent years building my career and creating a life I loved. And when my Prince Charming finally showed up, he had 4 kids in tow. Fast forward through lots of mistakes made and lessons learned. Stepfamily life was much more complicated than I realized. If you're looking for help with blended family life, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Stepmom Diaries, where we keep it real as we dish about all the things. This is your weekly dose of blended family inspiration and encouragement. You're not the wicked stepmother, so let me help you find your fairy tale ending. Come on, let's do this. Hello, welcome to episode 94. Today we are talking about communication, and it's something that I feel like we just can't talk enough about because it really underpins every aspect of stepfamily life. So I want to know, when was the last time you got frustrated at your partner over a stepfamily issue? If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen a reel I did recently about one of my clients whose spouse was getting blown up with texts from their ex. Like the pages long kind. And he was responding to them immediately, like at all hours, like from the bed at night, and then telling her about every exchange. And if you're getting tense just hearing about this, yeah, I feel ya. I was too. How stressful is that? I mean, the last thing you want to think about in your bed at night, right before you're going to sleep, is your partner's ex. Now, I did have a little bit of tough love for her. So my client was really irritated with the ex for not respecting their time or privacy. And, they had tried to underscore with the ex, like, don't text us at night, whatever. And the ex just was not respecting that. And she was really mad. But guess what? The ex is not her problem, right? It's an issue for her to address with her husband, not with the ex. Now, doesn't mean husband's a bad husband or anything like that. But here's the thing. The ex isn't going to change. The husband is the one who needs to set the boundaries and then enforce them, right? But she didn't really want to talk to her husband about it. She really felt sure that he did not understand where she was coming from. And I think he thought that responding to the ex immediately would keep the influx of texts from getting even worse. Wrong. This is just one example of how important communication can be in a stepfamily. If my client cannot communicate her need to her spouse, what happens? The texting continues, she stews, and eventually it blows up again. So that's why I wanted to talk about this today. And to be clear, communication is not just about things around the ex, right? It's parenting styles. It's figuring out your role in the family. For example, there are a lot of times that a new stepmom will feel like she's got to step into the mom role, because that's what her partner expects, right? She sees the kids running around. It's chaotic. She's got to step in and bring some order to the situation. Like lay down some rules, set down some discipline, be the full parenting partner. First of all, no on the discipline. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know how I feel about that. Research shows that step-parents should not be engaging in discipline before there is a really solid connection with the stepchild. That's a whole different episode, but that's just, first of all, no. Second of all, she is in this situation because she and her spouse didn't talk about how the parenting was going to go down. Now, that's not a failing on their part. That happens to so many couples. And it happened to me too. I know exactly how it feels. So today I want to walk through a few tips for improving communication in your stepfamily, which will ultimately strengthen all of your relationships. And because this is so important, I recently rolled out a new freebie for you. It is called Smooth Talkin' 10 Essential Stepmom Scripts. And it gives you exactly what to say in 10 common stepfamily situations. It's really good. I'm going to link to it in the show notes, but you can also go to stepfamilysolutions.com/stepmom-scripts. All right, let's get started. Before we get into the tips, I think it's really key to look at why communication can be so much more challenging in a step family versus a first family, right? You probably already know that step families experience challenges that first families just don't. They just don't. And that's not discounting any of the challenges that come along with being in a first family, because I know they exist. But step families just have a different struggle. First families start out with two generally biological parents, but we can call them primary parents to account for adoption or anything else. The couple has had time to get to know each other before the kids are born, before they're in the picture. They've bonded with each other. They've had time to fight over the stuff that's not kid related. You know, when you move in with somebody, there are things that you have to get used to. They've had time to do all that, right? And they've navigated money and all the logistics of that stuff together. Step couples, on the other hand, are thrown into a situation where the kids are not just already there, but a lot of times the couple is navigating complex, layered relationships that can create tension or misunderstandings between the partners. The stepkids and helping the step parent build relationships with them is one of those challenges. Most times there is some kind of loyalty bind present where the child feels guilty for having a relationship with the step parent, or the child is unsure because does that mean they're betraying mom? It can be really hard on the entire family, but it's especially hard on the step parent who may feel like they constantly have to prove themselves. And for the step couple, that tension can lead to frustration and resentment if it's not addressed. And, you know, you may feel like you're on opposite sides here and you don't really know how to support each other while also supporting the kids' needs. It's something you need to be able to talk about. And these loyalty binds don't always present. It's not just when there's a high conflict ex. Kids can feel weird and feel stuck in the middle anytime. So it is something to think about as the step parent is trying to bond with those kids. And then there's the involvement of the ex-spouse, and that brings its own communication challenges, right? When one partner is regularly communicating with an ex, it is really easy for the other one to feel left out or like they're not part of the decisions being made. Like in the client situation that I mentioned earlier, how do you think that stepmom was feeling? She's feeling totally left out. You're in the bedroom, for crying out loud, and she doesn't feel like she is even close to the top of her partner's priority list. It is frustrating, and she will probably get more and more resentful if it's not addressed. And of course, when the ex is high conflict, when the ex is critical or inconsistent in their parenting, that can get even more complicated, which is far more common than I thought it was before I got into doing this work. But the bottom line is, if the two partners aren't communicating, one partner may feel totally unsupported. They may not know how to bring it up without triggering an argument. Another common breakdown that I see is around discipline. And I've briefly mentioned that in a first family, we know that parents usually have a more aligned approach because they've had time to bond with the kids, right? And if you listen to my last episode last week with Larry Ganong, the way that he put it is, you don't discipline a baby. Biological parents nurture the infant. They love on it. They take care of it before all the discipline stuff kicks in. So they have that foundation with the child. In step families, not only is that part missing for the step parent, their role isn't always clear. They may not know how involved they should be in discipline, and the biological parent may feel defensive or protective. This can all lead to breakdowns, right? And side note, I've already discussed that, I subscribe to, it's called connection before correction. It's a term that Patricia Papper now throws around a lot. And it's what I was just talking about where, you really should not be disciplining the child until you have a connection, a real bond with them. It's a whole nother topic, but I want to underscore that is the general rule, right? So all of these challenges add to a lot of frustration from both people in the step couple. If you're a stepmom, you may feel like you're always on the outside. You're never really fitting in totally, despite all your best efforts. You may feel lonely. You may even feel a little guilty for wishing things were different. And if you're the biological parent, you may feel caught between your partner and the kids. You may not know how to give everybody what they need. And that may put you in what you feel like is a really bad place. The good news is that with some communication tools and some patience, you can absolutely work through this stuff as a team and come out stronger on the other side. And if you're nodding your head to all of these feelings, you are not alone. It is so common in step couple dynamics. I've been there. My partner's been there. So many of my clients have been there. It is so common. So you are not alone, and your feelings are totally valid. Hey there, stepmoms. I know you're juggling so much. You are trying to connect with your stepkids. You are managing dynamics with your partner's ex, all while you're figuring out your role in a family that didn't start with you. It is exhausting. So I want to know, when was the last time you did something just for you? I know it can feel like you are stuck on this merry-go-round of chaos that you can never quite step all the way off of. And it can feel like no one else really understands all these unique challenges that you're up against, which is exactly why I am inviting you to Stepmom Live, January 24th to 25th in Alexandria, Virginia. Because you know who gets it? Other stepmoms. That's right. We are going to have 2 days of insightful workshops, expert advice, and 100 stepmoms in one room together. Stepmoms who get it. You are going to leave with tools and strategies that you can use immediately, plus a renewed sense of confidence and connection. Next time the ex talks trash about you to the kids, you know what to do. When your spouse doesn't back you up on house rules, you'll know what to do. Stepmom Live is going to be jam-packed with all the goods. Plus, you're going to go home with a ton of new friends who know exactly what you're going through. So head over to stepfamilysolutions.com/Stepmom Live to reserve your spot. I can't wait to see you there. Let's get into some baseline communication tips. And some of these you may have heard before, but I think that these are really going to be helpful to bringing up some of these touchy subjects and having some of these difficult conversations. So the first one is using I feel, right? And you may have heard about the I feel statements, but they help you get more clear and help you connect with your partner a little bit, right? So it's really effective. There's a reason that, it is there, that this I feel is talked about as a cornerstone of healthy communication, especially in step couples. It helps us express our needs without putting our partner on the defensive. And the Gottman Institute has done a lot of research around this. And they actually have said that using the I feel statements make us more likely to be heard and understood, right? And speaking of, the Gottmans have done amazing work on communication techniques. If you go to the show notes, I'll link to a couple of their books that I really love for helping to communicate with each other. And they have one that they put out not too long ago about how to fight with each other. And it's fantastic. So anyway, I feel. So here's why it works. Let's look at a situation where your spouse leaves you alone with the kids and you're left to discipline them in your spouse's absence. But when your partner gets home, they don't enforce any of it. How infuriating is that? Especially when it happens over and over again, right? So instead of saying something like, you never back me up with the kids, what's that going to do to your partner? That's going to feel like an attack, right? They're going to immediately get on the defensive. So we flip that around to focus on our own needs, focus on our own experience. Instead, you might say, I am feeling really overwhelmed when I have to handle the discipline alone. Can we talk a little bit about finding a more shared approach? Because I really would like to address this feeling of overwhelm that I've got. See how that feels different? Takes the blame out of it. It helps open the door to a more constructive conversation. And to be clear, it's not saying, I feel like you never back me up with the kids, right? That is not where we're going here. It's really getting to how your partner's action is making you feel, that underlying emotion. And what that does is it allows us to stay vulnerable without giving up our boundaries. We are saying, look, this is where I'm at. This is what I need, instead of pointing fingers. And that is the kind of clarity that really helps you build connection with your spouse. So, as you're navigating these difficult conversations, I want you to remember that using I feel, it's not just a tactic, right? It is a way to protect your relationship from the stress and defensiveness that can come up so easily in step families. There's already so much complexity in a blended family. Let's not add that unnecessary friction, right? All right, let's talk about another tip: active listening. This is essential for healthy communication. And I know listening sounds simple. And the first time I read this term, I was like, ugh, I know how to listen. Well, real active listening goes beyond just hearing the words. It is making your partner feel valued, making them feel like you're listening, like you understand them. And for step families, this can be a real game changer, especially when conversations get tricky, which they do. So, what does active listening really look like? It's not just nodding along when you have your laptop in front of you and your partner is trying to tell you something, right? It's a 3-step process. Let's think about it that way. Make eye contact is the first step. Really focus on them. Let them know that they have your attention. Then paraphrase back what you've heard. For example, you may say something like, okay, so I'm hearing that you would like for us to plan out the kids' schedule for the month so that we're on the same page. Is that right? This helps ensure that you did understand what they meant, right? And then avoid interrupting. Let them finish their thoughts before jumping in with your response. And again, I know that sounds really basic, but it's harder than it sounds. How often does your spouse start talking to you and you start tuning out? I wonder what we should have for dinner. Oh, I saw this cute top at Nordstrom. I need to see if they have it online. You know you feel me on that. But in all seriousness, let's put this into a blended family example because we know things can get really layered here. So let's talk about you and your partner are discussing boundaries around communication with an ex-spouse, say. Sensitive subject, right? Instead of jumping in right away with all the points you want to get across, focus on your partner's perspective first. Listen to their needs, and then repeat back to them for clarity what you've heard, paraphrase it, and let them know that you're really engaged in finding a solution here. When we practice active listening, it sends a powerful message that our partner's feelings and concerns matter. And what does that do in turn? It builds trust. It creates a safe space where both of you can share openly. You don't have to worry about misunderstandings. And in a step family, that kind of foundation is going to make all the difference for you too. All right. So let's talk about one more quick tip today. And that is to set boundaries as a team. This one is really crucial, especially in a blended family where you are balancing so many different dynamics, right? You've got kids, you've got the exes, you have extended family, and of course, you've got each other. Setting boundaries together is not just about avoiding conflict. It's really about creating a stable and safe foundation that helps everyone feel respected. You may have heard me say before that boundaries are not about the person you're dealing with. They're really about you and what your needs are. So how do you actually work with your spouse on this? Well, it starts with sitting down to talk about where they might be needed. Where do you want to see boundaries? Think about some of the areas like co-parenting communication, which we've used in the example today, right? Family time, maybe even expectations around discipline. For example, if your partner's ex is like my client's situation where they are just texting all the time, nonstop at all hours and expecting a response, talk about setting a boundary around specific communication times that work for both of you. It keeps things predictable and less invasive. And as you set these boundaries, it's important that you have a united front, right? So even if you and your partner don't agree on every detail right away, you're on the same team. And remember that. Talk about what feels fair and decide together, come to a compromise. And then you both have to, this is key. You both have to commit to following through as a couple, right? So if you and your partner set a boundary that they're not going to respond to the ex's text past 8 p.m., they've got to stick to that. That's the boundary that they've set. It's for the protection of your relationship. so that you have, the safety and respect that you deserve in your bedroom at night. And they need to stick to that, right? So you have to agree up front that that'll happen. The whole family benefits from this, by the way. When you're clear and consistent, everybody understands expectations, and it helps you solidify your relationship so that you can handle these ups and downs. It's all about respect with boundaries, and that's respecting each other, respecting the kids, even respecting the ex in a way that kind of keeps everything in its right place, right? This stuff can be really tricky, but I want you to take some time and think about some boundaries that might bring you and your partner just a little bit more peace. And honestly, it's going to bring you a lot more stability. And setting them together is something that's really powerful that you can do. And again, I want to underscore, commit to following through on them and holding each other accountable. Now back to the communication tips. That doesn't mean you never tell your ex not to text at night when we're in bed, right? That is not how you communicate that. Try something more like I feel like our bedroom should really be a place for us. What can we do to get back on track so that, you're not having to respond to these texts at all hours, right? It is on them to enforce it. It's up to you to support them and hold them accountable in a respectful kind of way, right? Does that make sense? All right, let's do a quick recap. We talked about the I feel statements. Remember, it's not just about expressing yourself. It's really keeping the conversations constructive and building connection. We talked about active listening, making your partner feel heard. Then we talked about boundaries, setting them as a team. Now, here is my challenge to you. I would like for you to try using one of those three things this week. Maybe it's having a conversation that you have been putting off and using I feel. Or maybe y'all need to have a talk about family schedules coming up and you're going to focus on some active listening. Pick one that feels doable. And I want you to take note of how it may change the dynamic with your partner. How does it feel when you're able to employ some of these things? I would love if you would head over to Instagram, find me at Stepfamily Solutions, and send me a message and tell me how it goes after you try it. I would really love to know, and I'm in there all the time, and I will respond to you. If you're looking for more resources to support these communication tips, please head to stepfamilysolutions.com. I've got more related articles and tools to kind of keep you going. And I hope you will come join me in Alexandria, Virginia in January for Stepmom Live. It is going to be 2 days of life-changing workshops and community, and it is just for stepmoms. I've got a link with all the information in the show notes at stepfamilysolutions.com/episode 94, or you can head to stepfamilysolutions.com/stepmom live. I am so excited for you to start putting these tips into practice. And remember, every small step helps build a stronger, more connected relationship, which is what you deserve. I will see you next week. That's it for this week. If you've enjoyed our chat, I hope you'll help spread the word. Share this episode with friends and head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave me a review. And don't forget, for more great stepmom content, head on over to thiscustomlife.com and follow me on social media. Just search This Custom Life on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Until next time, you keep being you and know that we are in this together. See you here next week.